We are absolutely obsessed with this myth of the natural. We look at some virtuoso musician, an elite athlete, or a legendary CEO, and we tell ourselves this really comforting story. Oh, they were just born with it. And it's a convenient lie, isn't it? Because it gives us the perfect excuse to just stay right where we are. But the reality? Well, it's way more demanding and honestly, way more empowering. So when you see what you think is just effortless genius, it's anything but. What you're really watching is a brain that has been physically resculpted, literally changed through thousands and thousands of hours of intense, focused struggle. You're seeing the biological result of a very, very specific process. So let's start by just tearing that whole myth down. This idea that some people are just gifted, it's really an escape hatch. It lets us all off the hook. But the science? Well, it tells us something completely different. Greatness isn't something you're born with. It's something you build, cell by cell. And this, right here, is the crucial point. There is a protocol. There's a formula. It has nothing to do with luck or your genes. It's all about understanding the biology of how we learn skills and then deliberately applying it. If you follow the steps, mastery isn't just a possibility. It's pretty much an inevitable outcome. Okay, so let's dive into what this protocol actually is. How in the world does your brain physically construct a skill seemingly out of thin air? Well, the answer lies in this remarkable substance that's kind of like your brain's own personal network engineer. I want you to meet myelin. Every single time you struggle with a new skill, a very specific set of neurons fire in your brain. And when you practice with intense focus, your brain responds by wrapping those firing circuits in layers of this stuff, myelin. Think of it like this. You're upgrading a tiny dirt path in your brain to a full-blown fiber optic superhighway. Evolution didn't give you talent. It gave you this incredible ability to build these superhighways for any skill you choose.
Now, this is a really critical distinction because not all practice is created equal, not even close. Mindless repetition, just going through the motions, it does almost nothing to trigger that myelin growth. It's deliberate practice, pushing yourself right to the very edge of your ability that sends the biological signal to your brain that says, hey, this circuit is important, insulate it, make it faster. And it turns out that edge has a sweet spot. Research suggests that real growth happens when a challenge is roughly 4% harder than what you can currently do. Any less and you're bored, any more and you're just totally overwhelmed. That 4% zone is where you're forced to adapt, and that forces your brain to add another critical layer of myelin to that circuit.
So this brings us to the core strategy of it all. You've probably heard of Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000-hour rule, right? It's famous, but it's so often misunderstood. 10,000 hours of just mindless practice just makes you an expert at being mediocre. The quality of that time is everything, and that quality is defined by a relentless, unending focus on correction. Elite performers, they don't look for applause. They actively hunt for their mistakes. They follow this exact protocol. They break a skill down into its tiniest parts, they pinpoint the exact moment things go wrong, and then they attack that single weakness with an almost obsessive focus until it becomes an automatic, myelinated strength. Now, this whole process of building neural superhighways requires a ton of energy. You can't myelinate every circuit in your brain at once. Your biological resources are finite, which is why strategic focus is just as critical as deliberate practice. And Warren Buffett's advice here is brilliant because it highlights a really painful truth. Your good goals are these silent assassins of your great ones. And you can see this concept play out brilliantly in the real world. Instagram became a billion-dollar company with just 13 employees because they said no to every good idea. No video, no messaging, no complex filters, just to be the absolute best at one great thing, simple photo sharing. In-N-Out has the highest revenue per store because they don't do chicken or salads, they do 3 things perfectly. This kind of extreme focus allows for deep, concentrated myelination. So let's say you've chosen your one great thing. The next step is to create the optimal conditions for this myelination to happen. It's not just about what skill you build, but it's also about when and where you build it. You literally have to engineer your environment to maximize this biological process. Your brain, it turns out, operates on what scientists call ultradian rhythms. These are natural 90-minute cycles of high and low performance. Myelin production is most efficient during these intense 90-minute sprints of completely distraction-free work. That's your window. That is the optimal time to build a skill. And the difference is Staggering. I mean, look at this. This study found that the same programmers were 5 times, 500% more productive during their peak biological hours. So timing isn't just a small factor, it's a massive multiplier. You've got to identify your 2 or 3 peak hours and then defend them like your life depends on it, because that's when your brain is actually ready to build. Finally, to really trigger that deep encoding, you have to use the isolation hack. Turn off the world. No notifications, no email, no background music. Why? Because every single one of those distractions is a safety net. It gives your brain an easy way out. But when you force it to solve a problem in total isolation, well, it has no choice but to build the neural circuit from scratch. Okay, so let's put all of this into perspective. This is a long game. Mastery is a marathon of the spirit. It's a biological project that takes years. And so often, it's our biggest failures that actually provide the fuel for that journey.
When the Beatles hit America in 1964, they looked like an overnight success, didn't they? But this timeline, it reveals the truth. They had already performed live over 1,200 times. Those years in Hamburg weren't just about paying their dues. They were a massive, multi-year myelination project that made them one of the tightest bands in history. And the exact same is true for Michael Jordan. Being cut from his high school team wasn't some final verdict on his talent. It was the neural catalyst. That failure provided the intense emotional fuel he needed to commit to the protocol, to outwork absolutely everyone, and to build a skill set so deep and so myelinated that it became unstoppable. So the crucial point is this: stop waiting to discover your gift. Greatness isn't found, it's forged. It's a biological process, and it's available to anyone who is willing to engage in the focused, deliberate struggle that's required to build it. There is no talent, only the protocol. So the only question left is, what skill will you build?